ओके आगे कंटिन्यू करते हैं। MCS 201 का ब्लॉक 2 का लास्ट यूनिट है, यूनिट 8। इसके बाद पाइथन स्टार्ट हो जाएगा। पाइथन का ब्लॉक 3 और 4 में है, ठीक है। तो ये लास्ट फाइल हैंडलिंग क्या है सी में देखते हैं, ठीक है। क्योंकि सी मेरा पहले से किया हुआ नहीं, हमको पता नहीं है, तो फिर थोड़ा टाइम लग रहा है इसको समझने में, इतना जल्दी क्लियर नहीं हो रहा है, बट ट्राई करते हैं कि समझ जाए with this PDF। फाइल हैंडलिंग इन सी में क्या है, यूजिंग फाइल पॉइंटर्स, ओपन अ फाइल यूजिंग फंक्शन एफ ओपन, क्लोज अ फाइल यूजिंग फंक्शन एफ क्लोज, इनपुट एंड आउटपुट यूजिंग फाइल पॉइंटर, okay, character input and output in files, string input and output, formatted input and output, block input and output, function sequential versus random access files, positioning the file pointer, the unbuffered IO, ये सारा है। तो क्या है, we have seen so far in the previous units deal with standard input and output. When data is stored using variables, the data is lost when the program exists unless something is doing save. C views files simply sequential string of bytes. Each file ends either with an end of FileMaker or at a specified byte number recorded is system maintain administration. Okay, ठीक है। The disk IO is a C accomplished through the use of library function. Objective क्या है, define the concept of a file pointer and file storage in C. Create text and binary files in C. Read and write from text and binary files. Deal with large set of data and such a file records. File handling in C, as already mentioned above, there standard error, standard input, standard output, standard error. Okay, open a file using F open से फाइल ओपन होता है। Once a file pointer variable has been declared, the next stop is to open a file. The F open function open a stream for and use a link file with the stream. File F open char file mode, okay, mode क्या क्या RT opens a text file for read only access, ये सारा कुछ मोड है। The fragment is the following code fragment explain how to open a file for reading. Okay, include studio.h, main तो रहेगा and the curly bracket भी रहेंगे, ठीक है, ये समझ गए। s के अंदर में fp To access any file, we need to declare a pointer to file structure, then the associate with the particular file. The pointer file refers to the file pointer and is declared as follows. Open a file for this. We have to write this file और fp, right? वो तो होगा ही होगा, ठीक है, ये समझ में आ गया। Now fp pointer बना रहे हैं, ठीक है। The pointer is referred as a file pointer and it is declared as follows. Pointer कैसे बनेगा, स्टार लगेगा। तो अब यहाँ पे क्या है, ओपन करने बोल रहे हैं ना, फाइल fp if कर्ली ब्रैकेट के अंदर अगेन fp इक्वल टू f ओपन फाइल 1 डॉट डाटा एंड r लग रहा है, r इज फॉर ओपन अ टेक्स्ट फाइल फॉर रीड ओनली एक्सेस इक्वल टू नल नथिंग। तो क्या है, प्रिंट फाइल डज नॉट एक्सिस्ट एग्जिट 0, ऐसा। क्लोज अ फाइल के लिए इंट एफ क्लोज फाइल डॉट एफ पी टी आर, ओके, इंक्लूड ये रहेगा, ये भी रहेगा। इफ फाइल एफ ओपन इक्वल टू नल फाइल डज नॉट एक्सिस्ट, ठीक है। और फिर जो भी रहेगा फाइल टू क्लोज F close and FP. Once the file is closed, it cannot be used further. It required to be open in same or another mode. Input and output using pointers. Opening After opening the file, the main thing needed is the way read and write the file. There are several functions and markers defined in this. Hmm. Character input and output क्या बोल रहा है? Get output. Get C is used to read character from file. Put is used to write. Get is read and put C is used to write a character to a file. Their syntax is as follows: input in ch file stream. F get C and F put C. Only get C. F से क्या? Apart from the above two macros, C also defines equivalent function to read and write. In this, okay. String output and function क्या है? F gets. If if we want to read a whole line in a file, then each time we will need to call character input function. Instead, C provides some input output function with the help of which we can read and write a set of character at one time. फॉर्मेटेड इनपुट एंड आउटपुट फंक्शन भी है. ठीक है. ब्लॉक के लिए एफ रीड एफ राइट. सीक्वेंशियल वर्सेस रैंडम पोजीशनिंग द फाइल पॉइंटर. फंक्शंस है कुछ कुछ डिफाइन है, इतना तो समझ में आ गया. The buffer IO system uses buffer input and output, that is the operating system handles the detail of data retrieval and storage. The system stores data temporarily in order to optimize file system access. The buffer IO action. Reading, writing and positioning in file. ठीक है, इतना एक बार इधर देख लेते हैं. File handling in C using file pointers. A file is a sequential stream of bits that ends with an end of file maker, EOF. The file is a sequential stream of bytes that ends with an end of file maker. When a file is opened, the stream is linked with the file. By default, when C program started input, started output, standard input, output and error. When C program start, three files automatically open: keyboard input, screen output, error message. These are called streams, which allows communication between files and programs. Standard input stream helps read data from the keyboard. Standard output stream helps write data to the screen. A standard input stream helps read data from the keyboard, and standard output stream helps write data to the screen. When you open a file, it gives back a pointer to a file structure defined studio.h. File size, current position in a file, file type, other file needed to work with the file. It also includes an teaser called a file descriptor. This file description is like an index into a table called the open file table maintained by the operating system. Each entry in the table has file control, which has OS used to manage the file. So each entry in the table has a file control block, which is OS used to manage the file. Standard files use file pointers like stdin, stdouts, stder. Standard input, standard output, standard error. Buffer file system. The functions you use to work with files belong to the buffer file system, called buffered because these functions automatically manage disk buffers for read and writing. Buffer file system, the function you use to work with files belong to the buffer file system, called buffered because this function automatically manages disk buffer for reading and writing. To work with files, you declare a file pointers like this. Okay, file pointer. You declare a file pointer file in a capital and star with file pointer fp. Fp can then be used to open and work with file. Opening the file using fopen function. After you declare a file pointer, first you have to declare this, okay? Then the next step is to open the file. We use fopen function to open a file, connect it with the file pointer, and this function return a file pointer. So there's the syntax. File fopen char, ठीक है. File name is again pointer and mode. File name of the file you want to open. Mode, a string that tells how you want to open the file. Read, write and open. Mode बताना पड़ता है. So here are few modes. R open, RT text file writing. W रुको wait. R or RT open a text file. W and WT create a text file for writing only. A and AT appending. Okay, A starts for appending. R plus T means reading and writing. W plus T open. RT open. WT create file reading and writing. AT open or create file text file for reading and appending. RB open binary filing. ओपनिंग ऑफ फाइल में इंक्लूड मेन fp हो जाएगा f ओपन कौन सा फाइल एंड कौन सा मोड इक्वल टू नल तो एग्जिट 0. f ओपन फाइल tries to open file 1 data for reading. If the file does not access cannot be opened, returns null. If हाँ so यहाँ पे बोल रहे हैं अगर नहीं है नल है तो नहीं एग्जिट करना है, ठीक है. If fp is null the program prints. अगर वो null है तो file does not exist. Close a file using the function fclose. After you finish working with file you should close it. You close a file using fclose function. Fclose writes flush any data still in the buffer in the file, clears any unread data from the buffer, frees any memory buffer used, finally close the data. Writes any data still in the buffer to the file, clears any unread data from the buffer, frees any memory buffer used, finally closes the file. Return value, return 0 in if file closed successfully. If EOF end of file is an error occurs, EOF is also defined in studio.h. Note, if you don't call fclose, usually the operating system will automatically close the file when the program ends, but it's good practice to always call fclose. कोड एग्जाम्पल इंक्लूड studio.h मैन यहाँ पे ओपन हो रहा है. एक बार फिर से इसको देखते हैं, ठीक है. क्लोजिंग अ फाइल, ओपनिंग का तो समझ में आ गया है. आफ्टर यू फिनिश वर्किंग विद अ फाइल यू शुड क्लोज इट. यू क्लोज अ फाइल यूजिंग fclose फंक्शन. करेक्ट, यहाँ तक मेरे को समझ में आ गया. नाउ the int fclose file and fptr is the file pointer of the file you want to close. File pointer tr you want to close this. What fclose does, writes any data still in the buffer to the file, clears any unread data from the buffer, frees any memory buffer used, finally close the file. Return value, return 0 in if file closed successfully, return EOF if error occurs. EOF is also defined in studio.h. If you don't call f close, usually the operating system will automatically close the file when the program ends, but it is good practice to use always call f close. तो अब क्लोज का क्या है, ओपन हो गया and close the end में you have to close. If you don't use that function, still the program will dismiss. Okay. Input and output using file pointer. What is this? Input and output using file pointers. After opening a file, we need always to read from after opening a file, we need ways to read from or write to file. In C, many functions are available in studio.h for file input and output. The functions are divided into 4 types: character inputs, output, single string and output function. Character input, output, string input, output, formatted input, output, block input, output. So the function input and output using file pointers. After opening a file, we need always read from or write to a file. Input and output using file. After opening a file, we need always to read from or write to a file. In C, many functions are available in studio.h for input and output. The functions are divided into 4 types. In C, many functions are available. Okay? The functions are divided into 4 types: character input output function, string input output, formatted input output function, block input output function. Character input output files में A N S I C provides function to read and write. Function are get C or put C. Read a character from a file, write a character from a file. For this we have to int ch file and stream. So file और ये stream जो है the file pointer है. ch character the character to write. Return values. Put C, get C. Return the character. Your failure, return the character. Okay. Other equivalent function are these: read a character from a file and write a character to a file. Checking EF line, the function you have to check it. Return 0 if the file not yet reached. Summary. C provide character IO functions like get C, put C, get C, F put C. Get C, put C, F get C, F put C, F EOF to handle character by character reading and writing from files. String input output function to read a whole line from a file instead of calling character input functions multiple times. C provides string input and output function to read write multiple character at once. These functions are f get C, f put S. Okay. Function f put C characteristic file string. थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट सा लग रहा है, पर देखते हैं क्या होता है. In f get C, the integer parameter num dedicates then at most num1 character and read. Reading stops at end of file and end of line. मूविंग वही इसको आगे छोड़ के आगे बढ़ रहे हैं. Format and input function. If the file has data like digit, real number, character and string, then character input output function are not sufficient because they read data as character. To write data in specific format to a file, the previous functions are also not suitable. Therefore, C provide format and input like fscanf, fprintf. They are default in standard library. These functions are similar to scanf, printf. What? The first argument of the file pointer should be this. ये तो होना चाहिए. Correct, correct, ये correct है. The second argument is the format string. Int f read, f write, void what f read function. Sequential versus random access file. What is that? Sequential versus random access files is supposed to type of files, text files and binary files. Okay. C also support two types of file, which is buffer and unbuffered. File can also be categorized based on the access type like sequential access and random access. Sequential access files data is read in sequence one after the another. All examples discussed so far are performing sequential access random access files. Data can be read from a location in the file. C provides functions to move the file pointer to achieve random access. The functions for random access will be discussed in the following section. Positioning the file pointer. To support random access files, C provides a function to position the file pointer at any location in the file. The function is fsig defined the standard library. Int fsig this file fp तो पता ही है. Pointer to the file long offset int pos. So offset number of bytes to move the file pointer counting from 0 can be positive, negative or it can be 0. Okay seed set ct इस तरह कुछ है. और क्या है unbuffered IO. The Unix like file routing. The buffered IO system uses buffering where the operating system manages data retailer storage using temporary storage to optimize the file access. The buffered IO function are handled directly as system calls without buffering an IO system, therefore they called a low-level function. This is known as the unbuffered IO system because the programmer must provide and manage all disk buffer manually. The routines does not handle buffering automatically. Once again, the buffered IO system uses buffering where the operating system manages data retrieval and storage using temporary storage to optimize file system. The buffer IO function handles directory as the calls buffering by the operating system, therefore they call low-level function. This is known as buffered IO system because the programmer must provide and manage all disk buffer manually. So yeah, that is it for the file handling. इसको मुझे और अच्छे से समझना पड़ेगा, थोड़ा डीपली समझना पड़ेगा, प्रोग्राम कैसे लिखते हैं वो समझना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, एक काइंड ऑफ थियोरेटिकल अंडरस्टैंडिंग तो हो गया, बट कोडिंग का मतलब कैसे प्रोग्राम लिखने का है वो इतना क्लियर नहीं है. तो जो लोग मेरे साथ पढ़ रहे हैं या फिर मुझे फॉलो कर रहे हो, देख रहे हो मेरे नोट्स, तो अगर उनको आता है तो अच्छी बात है, बट स्टिल इससे क्वेश्चन तो आता ही है, तो ये आप लोग अच्छे से कर लेना.